All right, so let me say hello and welcome to another weekly edition of Stock Market Mutterings. This is for the week that begins on the 4th of November. Hope everyone is doing well. As always, this is where I'll do my very best to take a grope in the murkiness, try to make some sense out of this market, try to share with you some of my trade ideas and setups, and I hope that puts a little bit of money in your pocket. And before we get started, if you guys need help, I'm going to post a link right there on the screen real quick. You can visit thelinkedinlist.com. You can trade with us live. You can trade with us via our live feed, or you can just sit there and watch our educational material. Whatever suits you, just go ahead and check out the link. Now, I want to start talking about this week for me personally. It was kind of whack. Not whack financially. It was actually pretty good. But other than that, it was whack. I live out here in Southern California, and they keep shutting the damn electricity off every time the wind blows because we live in these high fire areas. Now, some of this I agree with, some of this I disagree with, because each year they keep pressing the rules, and it's like now we're down to the slightest little breeze, like a they just shut it off because they're worried about fires. Again, one hand I get it, but I spent the entire week, I'm going to rant about this later in another topic, maybe a happy hour or something. I'm not going to talk about it right here, but I spent this entire week trading like from McDonald's and Starbucks and bouncing around from one town to the next for internet. It's like I was like a nomad. I was trying out the nomad lifestyle, but it worked pretty good. It worked pretty good. I was kind of disconnected there midweek. So let's talk about this market. It's another all-time high. It's just like I'm repeating myself. I could probably just redo the market mutterings from like a couple of weeks ago. Now, look, we just keep making all-time high, all-time high. Now we had the Fed here this week, and normally when we've seen the Fed, they've kind of pressed the market lower, but we had some good economic data come out there on Friday, or some surprising there, that really sent this market kind of like running up. Now this is about the third or fourth Friday in a row where the markets just went balls out. Like it's like Freaky Fridays now for the market. So now that we're already here, you guys know this, you can see it. I don't need to tell you, it doesn't show anything for me here, but where are we going to go from here? What are we going to look at? Well, you kind of like to look at logic sometimes when you're trading. You like to say, man, maybe we ought to be looking at the short side on some of this. Maybe we should be looking at a pullback. Really hate getting heavy duty long. Really hate buying things after they've already stretched over all-time highs. But we've seen these shorts be a pain in the ass. I mean, I love shorting just as much as anyone, but we don't see continued fade. Now, there's some select names that go through there. We've had some disappointing earnings from some of the bigger names, but the market's just kind of shrugged it off. We're going to talk about those. Now, if you're just looking at the market, you're trading the futures, you're wanting to know where this market might go, I would think we probably want to come back to the 10 moving average here on the daily chart, and that's going to be about 302.22s. Maybe we find a little small pullback to 302s, maybe back down to the 300s. It'll probably just continue to consolidate. I'm really starting to wonder at this point, is there anything out there that can pull this thing for any significant period of time? Because it's still rallying. Again, it rallied on Friday on positive trade headlines. It's like, how many times can a market rally on a positive trade headline? It's just like 500 days later almost. It's just insanity. So look for that. I don't know how much more upside it will have immediately. Not saying that it won't go higher weeks from now, but maybe it needs a little bit of sideways consolidation. It's kind of been doing that with a pattern where it breaks a range, goes sideways for a week, breaks another range, goes sideways for a week. You broke the range late, so maybe it's just a sideways week. We'll figure it out. So what I'm going to do in this one is I'm going to give you some shorts and some long ideas. Now remember, these are just ideas. I have no freaking idea myself if I'm going to take these trades. They have to kind of line up a little bit because I don't see anything right here that says this is a no-brainer. The first that I'm going to look at is old Jose Cuervo. Long time since this Cuervo. Let me pull it up here real quick for you guys. QRVO. Cuervo. Now, I definitely don't want to buy this first thing Monday. It's an earnings play. It was already stretched, hella stretched. Sometimes you can capture some pretty good moves on these. Sometimes they just run all day. But if you're not already in it and you don't have a good entry price, there's no need for you to go buying it at $97.22 first thing on a Monday. This thing needs a little bit of digestion. And I'll show you what I'm talking about later here with Intel, how these can kind of set up. What I'm looking at here is possibly either a dip buy on some rapid flushes, if this thing happens to gap down or maybe press down lower, or do a little small, slow fade over 20, 30 minutes, maybe even 1 hour, then I'd look to pick that up and just see if it kind of melts its way back up to high. That's one type of trade. The other I'd be more interested in is a few days of sideways consolidation, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then towards the end of the week, we see some sort of flag formation, a real tight formation up around there, and then it gears back up over top of today's high, which is Friday, the 97. So I'd like to see it pull off of 97 for a little while, stay close to that area, and then move through there later in the week. I think if it did that period of digestion, then we would see a larger move that would probably easily go through 101 to 102. So I'm kind of looking at QRVO long. I'll go start with the longs first. Another one here is WYNN. Now, some of these are kind of bordering their earnings, and it's hard to tell what you're going to get. Some stocks have a tendency to ramp up before earnings, like Netflix. Others don't do anything, and some sell off. You just don't know what you're going to get with some of these being real close. But this is one hell of a setup. Now, if earnings weren't there, which they are, but it's holding the 200 moving average pretty good. And if it does break prior to the earnings, what day would we have that? That's on the 6th. So you got a couple of days. You got Monday and Tuesday you could trade this. I think if you see a pre-earnings ramp and you get a move above the 123.80s to the 124s, you're probably going to get a little bit of a breakout. Wouldn't trade this through earnings. After that, we'll have to see kind of how it sets up. But maybe if there could be a nice little scalp trade or an intraday trade breaking that range. So maybe Lulu long. Now, the other one here is Intel. I mentioned that one. This is kind of what I'm thinking might happen with QRVO. I like to call it QRVO, I'm sorry. Let's put that wrong. It's INTC. Is this kind of setup here where you see how it had its really strong earnings. There was a slight move the next day, but at this point when something goes up that much, it needs a period of consolidation and it needs some chill out time. And that's kind of what it's done. It's just sat here and just kind of, it hasn't been able to break back above 56.83, but it's getting picked up every time it pulls back a little bit. So what I'm kind of looking for on this one is if it can go back above the highs, maybe just really clear this 57, you get through that 57, you might see another nice move that would confirm that this was a flag, and then it would have a nice second wave move that could take it to 62, maybe even 65. So you saw what we did there at first with QRVO, that maybe this is what it will look like towards the end of the week, and you can get that move. So I'm kind of watching this one for long. So as I've gone through there, it's QRVO, WYNN, and Intel that I'm looking at for longs. Now, I want to share some short ideas with you here. And again, these shorts, man, you just don't, sometimes they pull back a little bit, but then they just stop. It's like overbought's just becoming more overbought, and probably more aggressive people are coming in and shorting these names. But I'm going to give you a few ideas. We'll look at them here and see if they actually manifest throughout the week. Definitely got to look at some Apple here. I was interested in Apple before earnings, and after their earnings, it was kind of like a back and forth. They didn't really do much during its earnings days. So yes, it went up $4, but it wasn't like what to be expected here. And then with all the bullishness that was going on Friday, I'm like, I'll just wait until next week. It's just not the day for that. And it was a good idea because it goes another 5 on top of it. This thing right here is just hella overbought. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to go higher. Don't get me wrong here. Overbought can sometimes get a lot more overbought. But when you're looking back at past stocks like Shops and TTDs and Twilos and those kind of stocks that just went on and on and on, you're starting to enter that cycle now where it's possible to look at something like this for a short, maybe even a swing short for just a small pullback on this that takes it back to the moving averages like 20 some dollars. And the reason I say that is because this thing is up like 60, 70% or some absurd amount like that. They lowered their guidance and the thing is up like 70% since they've done that. So I definitely think you've got to look at that angle right now, that possibly you're in the 7th, 8th inning of this stretch here, and this thing is due for just a small pullback, not a big correction. Now, on the flip side of that, when I look at a short at something like this, I don't always get the look that I want. So what I have a tendency to do is if I miss out on the short, or I get an opportunity for a gap down, like a gap down maybe, well, downgrades could be different, but let's say you get a gap down. You just get a regular old standard gap down, or a couple of nice sell-offs, or just a little bit of fading or pressure to the downside for a moment. I usually actually look to long these, because what happens is even if it ends up lower, they make for great trades, because something like this is not going to go straight down. I know there's traders out there that are hoping that, oh, this thing is just going to go straight down. They don't go straight down. They don't crash from these levels. They just don't do that. Everybody just seems to kind of swoon in as soon as they dip. So if you find things like that, they provide good trades. And I'll give you one of these here that was really good for us today, because you never know when they're going to happen, was RH. You know, RH has been, this is when I was talking about shorting, and I expect Apple to kind of go the way of RH right here and look similar to this pattern that you're seeing right here. But here's what I was looking at, just to kind of share you with some of my intraday trading and stuff, is it just sort of dumps right here. And it's just a random dump. There's no news that was on this. I was checking, and you get this really strong stock that's been in a religious uptrend practically the entire year, especially since the summer. I mean, it goes from 100 to 184 nonstop. And then you get this just midday dump from 180 to 173. It's just like $7 straight down. We just kind of waited for it to slow up right here once it picked this little wick, and then just bought the thing. And this was the trade. That was it. This little piece was all we traded. And we were trailing up the stop and eventually got stopped out once it crossed this little barrier right here. So we ended up buying it right here, getting stopped out here, because who knows, maybe it would go all the way back up. Now, it eventually ended up going back to the low of day again. Could have done it back here a second time. But I like to see power flushes like this, waterfall formations. You didn't get that. It was just sort of grinding down, and you never know what to expect there. So I'm kind of thinking, if Apple doesn't set up for the short that way like I want it, it could end up being a buy like this. You might see an opportunity arise sometime through the week where it gets flushed like this. And even though RH may go lower and Apple may end up lower, it's not going to do that all in one swoop. It's going to like do this all the way down, and that's the inflections that you're trying to take advantage of. So how about we look at that one, a little bit of Apple. And how about I share with you some spots, some spot skis. Now, I missed this one long. I actually was tweeting about this, and I ran my mouth about it, but I didn't do it. Again, another flag on the daily. Once this thing kind of broke 142, it just took off and running. And Friday kind of was determined pretty early that it wasn't going to be the day to short. You get so much bullishness to one side. You get, anytime the market gets too much action to one side and it's out of balance, you don't go against it. It's just too damn strong. So we'll have to take a look at some of this stuff again on Monday. But this is a big move. I mean, this stock was in the dumpster, you know. Let's see, 119 on its earnings. So you've got, man, an incredible move on this. Now you've got some resistances up to between the 155s and the 160s. So again, there's a couple of things that might happen. It could still trade up to that immediately. It'll probably go sideways, pull back, flag, or something like that prior. It's hard to tell what it's going to do. There's a couple of different variations. Again, it's not something that's just going to roll over. But I think maybe if you start out the week with some really bullish tempo on this and it gets close to 155, I'd probably start into a short up there, working off of 160. I think at that time, when you're looking at where the money might be in something like this, that's where I'd want to be. I would do it. I'd give it a go. I would give it a go right there. So I'm going to leave it at that right now. There's a couple of other ones here on the list that have some interest, but we're going to have to see how things open up on Monday, aren't we? So I've got, for longs, QRVO, WYNN, Intel. And for shorts, I'm looking at Apple and Spot. And of course, Apple and Spot, I wouldn't be opposed to buying those. If you get a flush, you miss the short, or you get a big dump, because shorts will probably cover into that move. So we'll look at those. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm wore out from this week, you know, running around, trading at McDonald's. I must have eaten, I don't know, six reams of fries every day. So I kind of like had a steady diet of lattes, because they have pretty good coffee. They have pretty good coffee at McDonald's. It says lattes and fries. And lattes and fries every day. And it's a much different crowd than the Starbucks. You know, the Starbucks got all the hipster beards and everybody's writing books and stuff. And then you go to McDonald's and it's just like old people with big old bellies chowing down on Big Macs at 6 o'clock in the morning here in California. Anyway, that's another topic, but I thought I'd share a little bit of entertainment there to end your session. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching this video. I appreciate it. You need help, you know where I'm at. Reach out to me at thelincolnlist.com. Trade them well this week. Until next time, take care.